Hey there, Jessie here for my Challenge Essential Life, a place where I post videos on essential oils. So today I'll be comparing the two Rose essential oils from Plant Therapy. And I'll be talking about them in regards to differences of aroma, uses and properties, price points, as well as some safety considerations. So I know technically they both aren't essential oils. One's an absolute, one's an essential oil, but for the sake of this video, without getting nitpicky, I'm just gonna call them essential oils. So before I get started, I'm gonna share with you which ones I have. So I have Rose Otto diluted to 10%. As you can see, the Latin name, Rosa Damascena or Damascena, and Rose Absolute, so Rosa centifolia. And if you're with a different company, the common name might change. For example, Rose Otto might also be called Bulgarian rose or Turkish rose, but you're really going to want to be looking at the Latin name to compare which essential oil we're actually talking about. All right, so let's start with aroma. If you watch my other video where I compared them in regards to smell when I first opened them, you'll know that my favorite was Rose Otto. So I'm going to smell that one here. And I find it to have a really kind of fresh rose floral smell. I'd say like almost citrusy, and it really makes me think of like when I drink an Earl Grey tea, kind of that whiff. It has that kind of like citrusy tone to it. So that was my Rose Otto. Whereas my Rose Absolute, I found it to smell more like a bouquet of flowers, and it makes me kind of want to sneeze, like that kind of precursor smell I get before I sneeze. That's what it smells like to me. So it does smell floral, it does smell like roses, but it has that kind of like, I don't know if I'd say pollen smell to it, but it's not really my favorite. And to be honest, the Rose Absolute, if you guys have allergies and you've ever used Nasonex, like that nasal spray, it kind of smells like that. So maybe that's why I really don't like it. It might bring back bad memories as a child of squirting it up my nose. So as you can see, these two smell differently, and I'm sure there might be people who prefer one over the other, the opposite of what I want. So if you have smelled any of these, feel free to comment that in the description. Tell me which ones you have smelled and what you think of them. So why these actually smell different is because their chemical makeup is different. So Rose Otto is higher in citronellol, while Rose Absolute is higher in phenylethanol. So these are naturally occurring chemicals in the plants. Okay, I know when people hear chemicals, they're like, synthetic. Not necessarily the case. This is just the chemical makeup of the plants and kind of what ends up being extracted from the plant. And speaking of extraction, these ones are actually extracted differently, whereas Rose Otto is distilled. Rose Absolute is solvent extracted. So there's different methods of taking the essential oil out of the plant and putting them into the bottles. So that's also a difference in how these essential oils came to be in these bottles. All right, so when we talk about uses, you might be saying, well, which essential oil do I buy? Do I buy Rose Otto? Do I buy Rose Absolute? It's not that big of a deal because, to be honest, the uses and properties are relatively the same. So if you're stressing on, which one will I use for what I want to use it for, buy whatever you think would smell best to you, or whatever I guess is cheapest to you, whatever your priorities are in buying the essential oil. So speaking of the price, now we're going to talk about the price points. Which one's more expensive? Which one's less expensive? The most expensive one is going to be Rose Otto, but 100% pure, undiluted. Then less expensive than that, we're gonna find Rose Absolute. And then again, less expensive than Rose Absolute, so the most affordable of all will be the Rose Otto diluted to 10%. So this is what I like, because buying this pure undiluted is super expensive. Another reason I like to buy Rose Otto at a 10% dilution rate is because when we use an essential oil, we don't always need to use a full drop at a time. So in a sense, when I use a drop of this, I'm only technically using 1/10 of a drop, and then it goes further, if that makes sense. So I'm hoping that makes sense, because it is diluted. When I do use it, I'm using less of an essential oil at a time, which means that I go through it a lot less faster. And the fact that it is diluted, it helps stretch out how far I can use it, even though I would still be diluting this more, if that makes sense. All right, lastly, since we're kind of talking about dilution, we are going to touch on safety a little bit. So Plant Therapy has this really cool kind of Kidsafe logo where they indicate which essential oils are safe for kids and which ones aren't recommended for children. So let's take a quick look at the labels. If you see this here, you'll see that the Rose Absolute has a Kidsafe logo where Rose Otto doesn't. So if I was using this with kids, I would want to buy Rose Absolute. This might be your deciding factor of which one to get. Maybe not though. And also, you're going to want to dilute both of these, whichever one you get. When it comes to Rose Absolute, it has a higher topical max of 2.5%. So when I'm using Rose Absolute, I'm not going to want to exceed the dilution rate of 2.5%, where Rose Otto has a lower topical max of 0.6%. So that is pretty low. So it's something you may want to consider. Another reason why I do like Rose Otto already diluted, because it's easier to respect the topical max when I'm formulating a product, because then the batch doesn't have to be that big to reach that 0.6%. Sorry, this might be getting a little technical, so I'm hoping that kind of makes sense, but it's okay if it goes over some people's heads because I don't know where people are in their essential oil journey. Also, if I have inspired you to get Rose Otto from Plant Therapy, or if I've helped you decide which one to get, please use my affiliate link down below in the description. Just to recap, there isn't really a right choice of which one to get in terms of uses or properties because they are pretty similar, but there may be some things that help you decide which one you want. If you want a kid-safe one, maybe Rose Absolute might be best for you. If there's a certain aroma you're going for, you might want to choose one over the other. If you're wanting a higher topical max, Rose Absolute is where it's at. If you're wanting the least expensive essential oil, you're looking at the Rose Otto at a 10% dilution rate. Also keep in mind, sometimes Plant Therapy has different essential oils at a 2.5 milliliter or a 5 milliliter or a 10 milliliter or a 30 milliliters. So sometimes just by bumping up the format, you might be able to get triple the amount of oil for double the price. So that's something to look at as well if you want more bang for your buck. Just a quick tip there. But yeah, in the end, it's all up to you. I'm hoping this video was helpful. Again, take care and bye-bye.